Hello, I'm LBD, and today we're tying the EZY2C Polywing parachute. It's in chapter 14 of one of our more recent ebooks called Easy Trout Flies. In that book, we outline two different ways to tie off a parachute that we think is better than the traditional way. Chapter 14 shows one way. That's what we're going to show you today. And chapter 15 shows another way. You'll have to get the book to see that one. It's available on Amazon.com. Go to the search engine, type LBD ebooks to find it. Anyway, let's get started with that. I'll start by grabbing some Touchatron dubbing from back here on the tying rack, and that's what we're going to use in today's pattern. Let's take a close look. Like all flies, we start by mounting the hook in the vise. Start our thread base about 1/3 of the distance back from the hook eye. So we split our shank up into 3 parts. Notice that during the wrapping of the thread base, I've gone to a black screen and shared the recipe with you. We'll come back on regular screen here just as we reach the front of our thread base. Now I'm trimming off the waist end of the, and I'm getting my moose body hair for the tail. And I'm going to measure that for length, and I want it to be about as long as the hook shank. Rock it down on the side of the hook next to me, loose loop, and then allow thread torque to reposition the material on top of the hook. Otherwise you kind of have a tendency to end up with that material down on the side of the hook, and that's not what we have in mind. Now I'm coming back to the front, and I did not cut off the waist. I'm going to cut off a couple tail fibers. I got a few too many in there. There's one more that doesn't want to get with the program there. That looks like a better tail. I'm going to pull these up, and they're going to form part of my post. We'll just wrap a thread dam in front of that post. There we go. Now I'm going to give this a turn so I can better wrap my parachute post, if you will, around the moose hair fibers. We'll just use the base ends to provide some support to our post. That parachute post, we don't want to use too much poly, just enough to provide a bit of color to better see the. Then we'll trim off the waist just like we've got right there. And we're going to prepare this piece of poly yarn by taking my comb and combing it out. A regular strand of poly yarn is just way too thick, so we're only going to use part of it, probably about half. All right. And I want to make sure that my thread is hanging behind the post. You'll see why here in just a minute. Come around the hook to the front, to the back, and that little crisscross right there anchors that in place. Now I'm going to go ahead and twist this again so I can wrap my poly yarn to the post that was prepared out of the waist ends of the tail. There we go. That's looking pretty good. Now I'll trim off the wing to length. I want it to be about that long. And do a few crisscross wraps in there just to kind of cover things up a bit. Whoops. There we go. That's looking a little bit better. Now I've already prepared a hackle feather by stripping off some of the excess fibers. So I'm going to tie that on right in front of the post. Now I'm going to wrap up the post to the top. Then I'm going to bring the feather and anchor it to the post as well. There, now it's just kind of out of our way at the top of the post, ready for the wrapping process. And now it's time to put on some dubbing wax and some of that Touchatron. The wax that we use is our BTs, and I want you to notice that the wax only peaks above the edge of the tube, just a very small amount. It's very important that we not let that stick up too much, or the thread will cut the wax and it makes just a heck of a mess. All right, now get some of our Touchatron here, and we'll just touch dub this to the thread. Let me just widen this out just a little bit so you can see a little the other way. There we go. And we see just what we're doing. And we'll twist that in one direction so that we get a good application there of the dubbing on the thread. Now let's come back in. There we go. And we'll wrap our body. And we'll get up right up behind that post. And we ran out of dubbing. That's all right. We'll just put a little bit more wax on there. Touch some more dubbing to the thread so that we can dub the front part of the body. Kind of hanging up on some of those fibers. I want you to notice, this is really important now, that I dubbed up to the eye and then I went right back and I ended my last turn behind the post. Let me do a better job of attaching that dubbing to the thread. There we go. There. All right. Now we're going to wrap our thread. I'm going to tilt this just a little bit towards you so that you can better see that platform that we're going to wrap that hackle on. And then we'll wrap the hackle. And notice that the thread, this is very important, is hanging behind the post. Okay, I think I can squeeze one more turn of hackle in there, so I will. Now I'm going to come around the post and anchor my feather in place with 2 turns of thread. I'll stop, trim off the waist. And this is the trick that we're going to share with you here for tying this one off. One more turn to tuck it under, and then I'm going to leave the thread hanging in front of the post this time. And we're going to get this product right here, the EZY2C Fly Tire Z Cement, or brush on, this is very good too, Loctite brush on super glue. Either one of them is great. We learned this trick from Dave Whitlock back in the mid-90s, and it's just been one of the things that we always do. Just see how I'm putting a little bit of glue on that thread. Now I'm going to put this glue away before I end up knocking it over. All right, now I'm just going to take a couple more turns of thread around the body, and that super glue anchors it right in place. And that fly is done and ready to